Crew launches and spaceship landings from the International Space Station are all packed into the tight schedule for 2023. It's shaping up to be a busy year for NASA and its mission partners. The space agency has been working with Boeing and SpaceX as commercial crew providers to achieve new target launch dates for the planned flights that match the space station's requirements. Keep watching for more news on humanity's mission into the great unknown. Firstly, the Starliner commercial flight's targets. The first trip with astronauts aboard Boeing's CST-100 Starliner, the agency's crew flight test, is set for April 2023. While NASA and Boeing collaborate to reach flight readiness, the date adjustment clears up any problems in spacecraft traffic at the station. Following the successful uncrewed orbital flight test 2 to the space station in May, the team is still working toward the Starliner's crewed flight. Hardware for the Starliner and Atlas V rockets from United Launch Alliance is still expected to be ready in early 2023. While the collaborative team is working closely to identify forward work and close out OFT-2 anomalies, they also will make sure that all conditions are met for crewed flights. Many inspection processes involving several crucial systems are now being worked on by NASA and Boeing in preparation for the crew flight certification of the Starliner. With the installation of the forward heat shield and entry cover, Boeing recently finished the exterior of the Starliner crew module for CFT. Later this year, a new service module will be attached to the Calypso crew module, which has already flown. The flight software for the Starliner's CFT variant underwent formal qualification testing last month. Along with the Boeing team, NASA astronauts Barry Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who served as the CFT's commander and pilot, and Mike Finke, who served as the backup spacecraft test pilot, successfully completed the crew validation test. During this test, the astronauts wore their suits and checked the pressurized crew module to make sure that everything worked as it should, including the audio system, seat fit, and suit functionality. Next up, the Starliner gets delayed. For about 2 weeks, the astronauts will stay and perform their duties on the space station. NASA will strive to finish certifying the Starliner spacecraft for routine crew missions to the station after a successful crewed voyage. Following the conclusion of the agency's certification process and a successful flight test with astronauts, a launch date for NASA's Boeing Starliner 1 mission was supposed to be decided, but now they've postponed Boeing CST-100 Starliner commercial crew vehicle's first flight, with astronauts aboard, till at least 2024. Members of NASA's Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel expressed concerns about the vehicle's suitability for CFT and later operational missions at a meeting in October. It's great that the United States has one operational ISS crew launch provider, but they need to continue to monitor the impact of the continuous delays of the CST-100 program on the commercial crew project. The lack of consistency in the program could come from the fact that it's under the control of two organizations. Additional testing of the most recent version of the Starliner's flight software is needed, as well as a lot of in-flight abnormalities that need to be solved that were created by the Unmanned Orbital Flight Test 2 test flight of the Starliner. The transition to the first operational missions, the switch from the Atlas V vehicle that United Launch Alliance is retiring, and the ability of replacement hardware were all longer-term issues with Starliner that NASA's commercial crew program was facing. These issues may cause a further delay in the second source provider going online. After a successful flight test with astronauts and the conclusion of the agency's certification process, a launch date for NASA's Boeing Starliner 1 mission will be decided by NASA. Moving on to SpaceX and its commercial wing. Mid-February 2023 has been set as the launch window for NASA and SpaceX's Crew 6 mission to the International Space Station. At NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida's Launch Complex 39A, a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will send astronauts Stephen Bowen and Woody Hoburg of Dragon and NASA, Sultan Al Nayati of the United Arab Emirates, and Andrei Fedyayev of Roscosmos to the International Space Station. Starting with a brief handover with Crew 5, which arrived at the station in October for science excursion at the Microgravity Laboratory, the crew will spend around 6 months aboard the space station. SpaceX's Human Space Transportation System certification and Falcon 9 hardware are still on schedule for the vehicle's 6th crew rotation mission and its 7th trip with NASA astronauts. The Crew 6 mission will mark Dragon Endeavour's 4th trip to the space station. It's already assisted the Demo 2, Crew 2, and Axiom 1 missions, making it the fleet leader on a number of trips to and from the station. SpaceX's Dragonland facility at Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station is currently refurbishing the Dragon spaceship. Prior to the return of Crew 6, NASA and SpaceX are also planning to send Crew 7 to the International Space Station in the fall of 2023. Finally, NASA's SpaceX Crew 4 astronauts returned to Earth. NASA's fourth commercial crew mission to the International Space Station was successfully completed on Friday, when the Crew 4 astronauts from SpaceX safely splashed down off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. The four-member international crew was in orbit for 170 days. The Crew 4 astronauts participated in many science, maintenance, and technology demonstration projects throughout their mission. Cristoforetti and Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg Artemyev completed 2 spacewalks to preserve and refine the station. The objective of NASA's Commercial Crew program is to provide affordable, dependable, and safe access to and from the International Space Station. This has already given researchers more time to conduct studies and raised the possibility of discovery aboard humanity's microgravity test bed for exploration, assisting NASA in preparing for manned missions to the Moon and Mars. Now, in other news, starting with, what are commercial crew flights? Through a collaboration with American private industry, NASA's Commercial Crew program is achieving its objective of providing secure, dependable, and affordable human transportation to and from the International Space Station in the country. The International Space Station has increased value, more time for research, and more opportunities for discovery thanks to a new generation of spacecraft and launch technologies that can ferry personnel to low Earth orbit and the station. For NASA, the space station is an important test platform for learning about and overcoming the difficulties of long-duration spaceflight. Commercial companies are concentrating on offering services for transporting people to and from low Earth orbit, freeing the organization and allowing them to concentrate on developing spacecraft and rockets for deep space missions. NASA can now use resources to acquire astronaut transportation from Boeing and SpaceX as a service on a fixed-price contract in preparation for human missions to Mars. SpaceX's Crew system has received formal NASA approval, and human missions to the International Space Station have started on a regular basis. Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida serves as the launch pad for SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft as it takes off on the company's Falcon 9 rockets. NASA and Boeing are still analyzing data from the CST-100 Starliner system's second unmanned flight test to confirm its capabilities to send astronauts to low Earth orbit in the International Space Station. On May 19, 2022, the United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket lifted off from Space Launch Complex 41 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, carrying out the project, Orbital Flight Test 2. Moving on to, how are commercial flights changing the space scene? The Commercial Crew program is truly a groundbreaking strategy for bringing together the government and businesses to collaborate on space exploration. Since the Mercury program in the early 1960s, NASA has pursued human spaceflight missions using a nearly identical operating system. This includes the International Space Station's American components and the Space Shuttle program. NASA's engineers and specialists would first determine the requirement for a crew transportation system, and they would then supervise the development of the ship support systems and operational strategies. The system would be built by a commercial aerospace contractor, would make sure it adheres to all NASA requirements. To guarantee the crew system's reliability and safety, NASA personnel are heavily involved in and oversee its processing, testing, launch, and operation. The hardware and infrastructure are all under NASA's supervision. Finally, Commercial Crew's Advanced Transportation System. In order to guarantee crew safety, NASA highlighted the necessity for a crew transportation system as well as a wide range of demands. When it comes to a commercial crew, the goal is to create a safe, dependable, and affordable way to get people to low Earth orbit, where they can visit the International Space Station and return to Earth again. Companies who are interested are free to design. However, they're encouraged to use their best production and operational strategies. The hardware and infrastructure are owned and operated by the companies. NASA engineers and aerospace experts collaborate extensively with private businesses, providing valuable insight into the development process as well as experience and resources. The entire world seems to be looking at this mission, as this model is being implemented for the first time in the Commercial Crew program. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. What did you think of NASA's Commercial Crew flight manifest? And how soon will we be traveling to space? space? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.